Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. It's Michelle Amare. So today I have a wonderful guest. His name is Steve Schwartz. Actually, I used his resources when I started my LSAT journey. And so it's really amazing to be able to have the opportunity to collab with him today and get some great insight on the LSAT and LSAT Flex. He runs the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast. So definitely be sure to check out his channel and his different resources in the links below. And so with that said, I'll just go ahead. Steve, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, sure, Michelle. Thanks for having me on. Great to connect with you. Glad to hear my resources have been useful. As you said, I run the LSAT blog. I host the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast. Been teaching the LSAT since 2005. Tons of changes since then. The biggest now being, of course, the LSAT Flex coming up as we speak in just a little over a month. I know you mentioned that you're taking it. There are some new policies related to that LSAT that a lot of people have been asking me about, so I'm happy to share more on that.
Yes, please. Could you go into detail about so I know with like the LSAT Flex, this upcoming administration with the August one, there's a lot of different things that are different about this LSAT Flex version compared to the past. So do you mind going into detail about what differences LSAT has proposed for this upcoming LSAT?
Yeah, happy to do it. And first off, just for those who don't know, the Flex is the new online LSAT. LSAT put together very quickly. Due to COVID, they can't do the LSAT in person. They moved it online. That's the Flex. Before that, it was digital LSAT on tablet. Before that, it was paper and pencil. So lots of changes, most recently being it's now online from home, from a computer. And they did the LSAT Flex in May, June, and July. But for August, they're doing it as Flex again, but they changed a couple of key things. One of them is that they're offering a new score preview option for first-time test takers only, meaning that if you've never sat for the LSAT before, you can sit for the LSAT in August or beyond, take it, and then see your score before deciding whether to cancel, which is huge for people who are worried about having a low score on record. It gives them a lot of peace of mind. So that's really nice. So that's an option that a lot of people will have for August. Other big thing is that they'll require you to do the LSAT writing sample before they will release your score. Because people previously, they would do the LSAT, they would forget to do the writing sample. Law schools want those writing samples. And so this is the LSAT's way of making sure you actually do it. So those are the two biggest things. I'll stop there.
Okay. And with the idea of the score preview option, how effective or how do you think it would be advantageous for people to actually utilize that option? I mean, well, I guess from my experience and just my understanding so far and what I've heard about LSAT scores on your report, at the end of the day, I guess most law schools look at your highest score. So is it really worth that $45 for the average person?
That's a great question because there's really almost never any reason to actually cancel your score, even if it was low, because as you said, the vast majority of law schools, with maybe a couple in Canada, they take the highest score. So even if you have a low score on record, no big deal. Just retake, and that's the higher score is what counts. But people get nervous. People don't want to have a low score on record. That psychological incentive really runs deep. And so there are people who might cancel a score that ends up being great. I heard from somebody the other day who said that he almost canceled a 170, but because he heard my advice not to cancel, he kept it, has a 170 on record now. How awesome is that? But how big a shame would it have been if he canceled that? So score preview removes that as even a possibility because you could see it was a 170, and in that case, of course, you wouldn't cancel.
Mm-hmm. One issue that I've been experiencing with my studying journey for the LSAT Flex specifically is just knowing, like, I know the whole conversion process isn't very clear yet. Like, LSAT hasn't explicitly stated how they're doing that. What advice do you have for people who are in the process of taking practice tests and how to figure out what their conversion scale is for the LSAT Flex?
Yeah, that's a tough one. LSAC hasn't given any guidance on this. There's a ton of calculators and estimation tools out there. I have some recommendations in detail. I'm not going to go into the math here because we should get a whiteboard to go through all the numbers. But basically, none of these estimates are going to be perfect. They'll just be good enough rough estimates. I would aim to simply get the highest accuracy, get the highest raw score possible, and then at least that'll give you a ballpark estimation of where you stand. And I can even include a link to one of those calculators for you if your followers would find it helpful.
Okay, perfect. And then also with the August LSAT Flex approaching, I know we're like in the final weeks. What kind of advice would you give for people who are preparing for that and are in their last final stages of studying? What would be really helpful for them to focus on in these last few weeks?
So in those final weeks, it's really about taking exams and reviewing them. So I would say maybe take 2 or 3 flex exams, meaning 3 section exams per week, maybe every other day, not consecutive days. So maybe you do a flex exam on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you review each of those the following day. And that's it. You take a day off. That's all you need to do. Maybe if you find some weak areas, you could drill those and focus on those. But in that last month or those last couple of weeks, it's really about pulling it all together. You're not trying to cram. You're not trying to learn anything super new. And also know that even if you're not where you want to be, as the test approaches, you can always retake. The October LSATs just a month after the August one, because we got August 29th to October 3rd. Not a huge gap there. Just stay fresh on the LSAT, brush up on weak areas, and you're good to go again.
Okay. And then also with people, I know we're in the middle or maybe nearing the end of people who are taking the July flex. For people who might be in the position where they don't feel as strong or feel as confident about how they did in their performance, how should they go about studying or I don't want to say restudying because you've already been studying for this amount of time, but just re-strategizing and making sure you put yourself in the best position possible to do better on the next administration?
Yeah. I mean, once you get to test day, typically people feel like there's something they could have done better, something they could have done differently. Maybe time got away from them, other obligations came up. And so if there's something that you didn't do that you know you could have done, the retake is the chance to actually do that thing. So if it involves getting a book or getting a course or getting a tutor or a coach or just brushing up on weak areas or taking more timed exams and reviewing in more depth, that's the thing to change for next time around. And because you've got another 4 to 6 weeks, you can actually make it happen.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think would be helpful for people to know in regards to the LSAT flex?
Biggest thing I would say is just for the LSAT overall is just know that while the LSAT as a whole is incredibly important, no one particular test date will make or break you. You could always retake. And so I hope that diminishes the stress just a little bit. The LSAT's nearly every month. You could even take it in November and still apply plenty early this cycle. So you've got many more opportunities. The July flex or the August flex isn't the end all be all.
Actually, do you have a personal question for people who might want to take it abroad? How would that work with LSAT flex? Or is it different in how it's administered abroad in comparison to the US?
That's a good question. There are still some unanswered questions from LSAC I'm waiting to hear back on, but I will say that they offered the June LSAT internationally and as in a July LSAT flex. So they are taking care of international test takers for any test that was going to be in person internationally. They're redoing those as flexes when they need to. So I expect that the October international LSAT will become the October LSAT flex. So they are getting taken care of. They're not supposed to be doing the August one, but they do have the October one, and they'll have future chances too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for taking your time to answer some of my questions. They were very helpful.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michelle. I appreciate it.